What is the best way to move blogs from a subfolder to a subdomain?
Okay, so first of all, I definitely wouldn't do that at all. Okay, I would not do that. Um, Back years ago, yeah, we would say subdomains. I used a lot of different subdomains for different things because subdomains, in essence, can take your website and segment it into very small, focused websites that were about a specific topic. So, for example, I used to use the example of, let's say you had a website, I'm just again, cars.com, right? And I used to use this example all the time when I was doing live classes. So you have cars.com. And then under cars.com, you might have Ford, right? You may have Audi, BMW, right? So cars.com/Ford, cars.com/Audi, cars.com/Lexus, whatever, right? And what happens is like back then, your website's about all these different brands, all the such. It's kind of not focused, right? It's sort of all over the place. So back 10, 12, 13 more years ago, we would make Ford.cars.com and Lexus.cars.com and BMW.cars.com. And the reason for that is those were looked at as individual websites. And so if you have Ford.cars.com, well, everything on that subdomain was just about Ford cars. There was no talk of Chevys or, Lexus, or whatever. It was just about Ford, thereby making that website, that, individualized website, specifically focused just on Fords. Good idea back then. But Google has really changed the game, and they're looking for, authoritativeness, trustworthiness, experience, and so on. And so, they what's gone on is by having a site that's more cars.com/Ford, cars.com/Lexus/BMW, now you have a more powerful, more authoritative site that's all about cars. And you can still go get links that are talking about Ford cars that land on the /Ford or BMWs and /BMW. You can interlink your site more. Your site as a whole has more content about an entire subject, and you don't have to maintain, let's say, multiple, if you're having subdomains for Ford and BMW and Lexus, well, then you have to have content for Ford, for BMW, for Lexus every week or you have to keep up the content. Each of them is a separate magazine in essence. And each of those magazines needs to have regular updates and regular movement, regular things happening, or it dies. You'd also probably have to have multiple Facebook accounts and Twitter accounts and Instagram accounts showing just Ford cars and just Lexus cars on the Lexus one. And so it's just so much to maintain. Now, if you have the money and you have the personnel, sure. But if you're just starting off like a main website, you are much better off keeping your content in one domain, using subfolders to segment that stuff out, and keeping everything in one place. Now, that would be my recommendation. I would say don't. In fact, if you look, there's studies that have shown that moving from an interior to a subdomain will actually could potentially cause you some problems on the main website. Now, that being said, if you have a website that's got like 25 pages, but you've got like 300 blog posts that you're trying to move, and those 300 blog posts are not really focused on the topic and they're kind of all over the map, and you're just trying to get rid of them or move them somewhere else, well, then it's going to really depend upon your platform. If you're on like WordPress, you can export all your posts or export the ones that you want, set up a new subdomain, let's say using WordPress, import those into WordPress on the subdomain like blog.whatever.com. And then on the main domain, you need to use a 301 redirect to say, anytime someone comes calling for these URLs, which are the old blog posts, then send them over to the same name blog post, but on the subdomain. So it's a 301 redirect that you more than likely use. I don't have the command for that. If you wanted to reach out and get on a call, you definitely do that with like 15min.stevescottseo.com. Grab a call. We can take a look at what you've got, talk about how to do it. But if you're on a different platform, it could be much more difficult. But you are going to have to set up a subdomain with a new installation of WordPress. You're going to have all your plugins installed, all that kind of fun stuff. And then you're going to have to make sure that you don't have any internal links on the blog post that go back to other blogs on, like, you got to make sure you have not broken links. So if you're going to do it, I would definitely get yourself uh, a version of one of the main tools, like SEMrush or Ahrefs or one of those things. even if you don't have, let's say, you don't want to spend all the money for all the time, I would at least maybe get it for a month or two and just use the audit aspect of that to see broken stuff, see what's broken, what's not working. Screaming Frog's another one that you can get. I really like Screaming Frog. You'll spend 150 to 200 bucks US. I think it's in pound. I don't know. They used to be euro, but I think they're pound. So it's going to vary, based on exchange rates. But get a copy of that. It's 1 year for like 100 and let's just say 75, 175 down the middle. And at least you'll be able to see any issues or problems that you have on the subdomain and the main domain. If there's any problems with links or whatever, you can kind of figure where they're at. But like I said, I think it's a bad idea. So unless you have some extenuating circumstances on why you have to move it into a subdomain, I wouldn't. I would really keep it on the main domain. In fact, we did something recently for a client that had a lot of blog posts, and they were right off the root domain. So it was, site.com/blog post name, site.com/next blog post name. And the problem was it was making it difficult for us to really segment how well the website was doing from the blog post because some of the blog posts were generating a lot of traffic, but the traffic wasn't converting into anything, wasn't really showing us how the website wasn't transactional traffic, it was informational traffic. They wanted to know stuff, but they weren't really engaging with them. And so when we went through a redesign, we made a list of all the blog posts, which we were able to get out of the posts area in WordPress. We exported those out. Then we set up a subfolder called legal dash blog. It was a legal site. So we had, .com/legal dash blog. And then we set up redirects. Say, okay, anytime anybody calls for slash this URL, send them to /legal dash blog /shame URL. So we didn't change the slugs of the URLs, the main URLs of the pages. We just added a slug in the middle. And what that allowed me to do now is to say, okay, if I'm looking at Search Console, don't show me any page with legal blog in the folder name. And now I can just look at what the website is doing and what transactional words are doing without worrying about any of these other keywords that may have shown. They were writing about like, Camp Lejeune and drugs that were, causing problems or Alto and these other things. And they were getting a ton of traffic for it, a ton. But when I'm looking at last year over this year, like how many clicks did they get? Well, last year had like 1,000 more, 2,000 more in that month than this month. But most of those clicks were something unrelated to the actual business of, personal injury and legal stuff that they do. And so it was really hard to sort of look at and truly we weren't comparing apples to apples in essence. Now we can do a little bit more of that as we move forward. So yeah, that's the thing. I wouldn't do it. If you have to do it, you need to use 3-1 redirect, some kind of redirection in order to make it happen. But yeah, it's not a good idea. I would avoid it.